From Atlanta, Georgia, welcome to Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, a podcast for women on leadership and life skills with Rhea Story. Rhea shares powerful life and leadership principles, helping you maximize your potential and become the woman God created you to be.
Hello, everyone. Today's episode is on courage. And, this is courage is one of those characteristics that I think we develop, particularly as we mature, as we grow ourselves, as we develop our character, we find the ability to grow and develop our courage. Because let's face it, life requires courage because there are always going to be things that challenge us, things that maybe create worry or fear. And we can let those things hold us back sometimes. I've known people who wouldn't go get the job of their dreams because they were afraid of changing jobs. They were afraid of what the new opportunities might bring, or maybe they won't like the new situation as much. Often any change can bring fear with it if we let it, because there is always that concern of, what if I don't like the new state? What if I don't like the new possibility? And that's certainly an option, but fear also holds us back from maybe holding those difficult conversations that we need to have. Sometimes we're afraid to have them. We're afraid to actually clear the air. And sometimes courage is required just to stand up for what we believe in, to stand up for what's right, even when it's not the easy thing to do. I love Dale Carnegie's quote on this. Courage always comes with the sun, he says. You can conquer almost any fear if you will only make up your mind to do so. For remember, fear doesn't exist anywhere except in your mind. And this is so true. We create fear in our head. I remember quite a few years ago, one of my friends and I were doing an adventure race, which is, it's a couple miles of running through the woods on a trail, and then it's biking, and it involves some kayaking, and they throw in some challenges along the way. So there might be an example of something that makes you think, like you have to solve some math questions along the way. And then there were some physical challenges too. I remember one year we had to crawl through a mud pit that they created. They dug out a mud pit and filled it with water, and you had to crawl not just through the mud pit, but you had to crawl through a tunnel in the mud pit. And one of the challenges a few years ago was you had to jump off this huge rock, and it was probably 20 feet down from the rock to the water. And not just jump off the rock into the river, but you also, the rock was kind of at a slope. So you really had to, and of course, at this point in the challenge, in the race, you'd been in the kayak and in the water and swimming through mud holes, and you're soaking wet. So not only do you come up to this rock and you have to jump off, but the rock is at a pretty good angle. So you have to get a running start and then push off from the rock so that you land in the right place in the water. Well, up until that point, I really didn't have a fear of heights. But this particular year, I didn't really like the rock thing. Like it seemed so easy to slip or fall, or maybe come off the rock the wrong way, and so I knew the rock jump was going to be in the race. And when I heard the night before that it was going to be in there, I kind of was a little bit concerned, but not worried, not afraid. Well, the day of the race, and I have to say, in full disclosure, Grace is not my middle name. Um, I'm always more determined than I am graceful when it comes to anything physical. Well, I launched off the rock poorly. I just didn't get a really good launch off the rock, and I landed in the water face first. And in fact, I hit the water so hard that the life jacket I was wearing, because you wear your life jacket for safety, and it tore open my life jacket. Like, it completely blew open the life jacket zipper. It just pulled it apart, separated it. I hit so hard, I face planted basically into the water. and it knocked the breath out of me. It certainly scared me a little bit, but I was okay. Certainly wasn't hurt. Well, I noticed after that, I started to develop a little bit of a fear of heights. And that was a new thing for me. But it just, um, from that point on, I started to be concerned or be worried, be afraid when I had some anytime I was up in a height position of heights or on rocks or anything in the future. Well, the next year, I mean, I spent the whole year dreading this rock jump, and I knew it was going to be in the race again. Just because, sometimes we have intuition. We're like, oh, I don't really like that, and it's probably going to be back, and it was. So the following year, we did the same race again, same friend, and it came time to we were blasting off the race. I mean, we were really, I think we were in first place at the time. And we came up to the rock, and here we go. And I was so proud of my friend. She just ran and jumped in the water. And I was sitting there, and I told her before she went, I said, I'm going to do it. I said, I don't like it. I don't want to do it. I really don't. I said, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to have to take a couple of minutes to overcome this in my mind. And I did. I took me a minute or two. I had to really just stop and think about it, which probably I should have just done it and not thought about it. Um, it took me a couple of minutes to work up to overcome that fear in my mind. And I was fine. I jumped off the rock. I landed fine. I wasn't hurt. And I realized that I really had created the fear in my mind. And I'd spent a year creating this fear in my mind. And I was so glad I was able to overcome that because, fear holds us back. In my case, in that situation, it was holding me back from finishing the race. And, my team member was waiting on me. I couldn't let her down. So, my point here is that we create fear in our minds. And most of the time, worries or fears are not something that's ever going to come to pass. We just spend our time and energy focusing on things that we're worried about, and most of the time they don't come true. Um, Robert Lee, in his book, cites a statistic that 85% of what we are afraid of never actually happens. 85% of what we are afraid of never happens. And it's not that as leaders or as women or sometimes even as parents, we don't feel fear or anxiety or worry. We feel it, but we learn to overcome it. We learn not to focus on it. And that's really the key. I love Nelson Mandela's insight on this. He says, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. And really, that's what it comes down to, is courage is conquering fear, not letting it control us. So here are three things to really think about in terms of overcoming fear or having more courage. The first is to identify your fear. When you find yourself not taking an action or not moving forward, stop and think about why. What is really holding you back? In my case, in the rock jump, it was afraid that I would hit the water so hard again the wrong way, and it had scared me, and it hurt. But beyond knocking the breath out of me, but think about when you find yourself not wanting to do something because you're afraid. Courage means stopping and thinking about why. Now, there may be many things that you're afraid of: fear of failure, fear of making a mistake, fear of not being popular or not being loved, fear that others don't agree with you. Um, but really, courage requires us to step into our fear and say, what am I afraid of? Identify that fear. Now, as I talk about this and having courage, I do mean those fears that we create in our mind. Obviously, if you have a fear of snakes, well, poisonous snakes can be very detrimental to your health. They can be dangerous. That's an appropriate fear. That's not really fear. That's just being cautious and wise and smart about a dangerous situation. So just do want to make the difference and the distinction between things that we are wise about because of the risk and fear that we create in our mind that holds us back. So number two, once you've identified the fear, identify what you can control. Once you've identified your fear, quit thinking about it. Quit thinking about it. Quit focusing on it, because we give more power to something when we focus on it. And instead, make a list of everything that you can control or influence or cause to happen instead. Honestly, this is where truly successful women spend their time and energy, on the things that they can do. If you focus on what you can control, you'll find more of it over time. And number 3, take action. If the situation is out of your control, there isn't any reason to worry or focus on it any longer. But once you've identified what you can control, act. Just take action. Not moving forward isn't an option. We've got to take action. Sometimes that means taking a cautious risk, starting a new job. Sure, maybe there is fear of, the situation being different, or fear of what if I don't like my coworkers, but life involves a little bit of risk, and courage is going to require us to identify those risks, be cautious of them, of course. But it's not letting those risks or potential hold us back. Being smart about it. As Muhammad Ali said, he or she, in parentheses there, he who is not courageous enough to take risks will not accomplish anything in life. So we do have to take some risks. And courage isn't not being afraid. It's being afraid and acting anyway. Because that's where we find the power, is that we can overcome those fears and not let them dictate us, not let them control us. And that is the key, because life is going to be tough. There are going to be many situations that require courage, and overcoming those fears is huge in helping us move forward in life and develop our influence. Until next time.
Start increasing your influence and maximizing your potential with Ria's audiobooks. Available at audible.com, amazon.com, and iBooks. Please visit riastory.com to learn about Ria's books, resources, speaking, and training programs. Thanks for listening.